They told me to ask my daughter for money. My own son had $12 million sitting in a bank account, and his mother told me to go ask the school teacher instead. Let me say that one more time so it really lands. My son had $12 million. My wife told me to go ask my daughter, the school teacher. The one riding a city bus to work every morning because she'd already sold her car to keep me alive. That is the kind of sentence that sits in your chest like a rock you swallowed whole. You cannot cough it up. You cannot digest it. It just stays there. Heavy, cold, permanent. I did not say anything back to Caroline that night, 58 years old, sitting at my own kitchen table. And I just sat there. But I want you to understand something before I tell you the rest of this. Before you judge anybody. Before you pick a side. This is not a story about money. Not really. This is a story about who shows up when you've got nothing left to offer them. Who sits with you in the dark when there is no light at the end of any tunnel. Who sells the last thing they own without being asked because they see you breaking and they cannot let it happen. And it is a story about what happens when the tables turn, when the rock you have been swallowing for 10 years suddenly becomes the foundation you stand on. I need you to stay with me on this one. Every word of this is true, and by the end of it, you are going to rethink everything you thought you knew about family, about loyalty, about who really loves you and who just keeps you around because they have not yet found a reason to leave. Let me back up. I live in a little 3-bedroom house off FM 762 in Rosenberg, Texas. The kind of house you buy when you are young and you think you are going to flip it into something bigger someday. A stepping stone. A placeholder. Something you will outgrow on your way to the life you actually want. Never happened. The paint is peeling on the porch rail. I have been meaning to fix that gutter on the east side for 2 years now. Every Saturday, I tell myself this is the weekend. And every Saturday, something else eats the day. A shift I picked up. A bill I had to chase down. A cough I kept telling myself was just allergies. It was a Tuesday evening in late July. Hot enough that the cicadas had not even bothered to quiet down after dark. They just kept screaming out there in the trees like they were mad at the whole world and wanted everybody to know it. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a stack of mail I did not want to open. Past due notice from Centerpoint Energy. $47.18. A letter from the insurance company that I already knew was not good news, because good news does not come in an envelope that thick. Good news comes in a thin envelope. 1 page, maybe 2. Bad news comes with attachments and booklets and words like adjustment and review, and unfortunately, I had my coffee in front of me, lukewarm. I had not taken a sip in 20 minutes, just had my hand wrapped around the mug like it was the only solid thing left in the room. Caroline was at the counter doing something on her phone, scrolling. The blue light from the screen was the brightest thing in that kitchen. Then her phone rang. And I want you to pay close attention to what happened next, because this is where everything starts. Right here. This exact moment. I watched her whole face change. I do not mean she smiled. I mean her face changed. Like somebody flipped a switch behind her eyes. Like somebody turned on a light in a room that had been dark for years. The lines around her mouth softened. Her shoulders dropped. Her whole body shifted into a different version of the woman I married. There it is, I thought. The only smile I get to see anymore. And it is not even for me. Richard. Honey. She practically sang it. Oh my God. Tell me everything. I set my coffee down. Is that Richard? Let me say hi real quick. She did not even look at me. She turned her back. Actually turned her body like I was a draft coming through a window she needed to shut, and she walked toward the living room, her voice getting softer with every step, like the conversation was a secret I was not allowed to hear, like I was a stranger standing in somebody else's house. A $12 million account. Richard, that is, I am so proud of you, honey. I really am. You know you get that mind for business straight from my side of the family. Your grandfather could sell ice to an Eskimo. God rest him. I sat there and I listened to my wife of 31 years talk to our son like he had just cured cancer instead of closed a sales deal. I am not saying that to be bitter. I am saying it because it is true, and because you need to understand what normal looked like in my house before I tell you what happened next. She hung up eventually. Still smiling, walked back into the kitchen, and the smile dropped off her face the second she looked at me. Like she had taken off a mask. Like I was the audience and the show was over, and she did not feel like performing anymore. He is doing so well, Boris. That is good, I said, and I meant it. Whatever has happened between me and that boy, I never once wished bad on him. Not once. Not even in my lowest moments. Not even when he said the things he said. A father does not wish bad on his son. That is not how it works, no matter what they do to you. Caroline did not say anything else. She just slid the Centerpoint bill across the table toward me. Did not ask if I was okay. Did not ask about the cough I had been carrying for 3 weeks that I kept blaming on the Gulf humidity. Fix this, she said. Please. Before they cut it off again. Again. Like it was a pattern. Like I was the pattern. Like I was the pattern. Like the reason the lights kept getting cut off was not because I was working 6 days a week at a warehouse and still could not get ahead. Like it was a character flaw. A personal failing. Something wrong with me specifically that she did not want to catch. I picked up the bill. Folded it. Put it in my shirt pocket. And I did not say a word. Now. Here is the part where I am supposed to make myself look better than I am. And I am not going to do that. I am going to tell you the truth because the truth is worse than anything I could make up. And it is the only thing that matters here. 10 years ago, I was not some deadbeat who gambled away the family savings at a casino in Louisiana. I was not a drunk. I was not a man who walked out. I was a real estate investor. A small one. Nothing fancy. No skyscrapers. No downtown towers with my name on them. But I was good at it. I had an eye. I could look at a piece of land and see what it was going to become before anybody else saw it. I bought 60 acres of raw land out past Simonton, land that was going to sit right in the path of the Grand Parkway expansion. The highway was coming. Everybody knew it. The state had already started acquiring right-of-way. My property was going to be a half-mile from a brand-new interchange, commercial zoning, retail, gas stations, restaurants, everything that follows a highway when it cuts through empty country. Everybody said I was smart. Caroline used to brag about it at church. Used to tell the women in her Bible study group that her husband had a vision. That he could see things before they happened. That we were going to be comfortable. Really comfortable. The kind of comfortable where you stop worrying about the Centerpoint bill. Then an old pipeline under a neighboring property ruptured. Crude oil bled into the water table before anybody even knew it happened. The EPA came in. Federal cleanup order. Lockdown. My land. 60 acres I had sunk everything into. Every dime. Every line of credit. Every dollar I had borrowed against the future I was sure was coming. It got locked under a federal cleanup order before I ever broke ground. Could not sell it. Could not build on it. Could not do a single thing with it except pay the property taxes every year on land I was not legally allowed to touch. And watch my credit score circle to drain like something that was never coming back up. Banks pulled my lines of credit. Every single one. Overnight, like a switch, my business partner walked. Did not even call, just sent a letter through his lawyer. Clean, professional, cold, like we had never shared a single meal or a single plan or a single dream. And Caroline never once asked me if I was okay. She asked me how I was going to fix it. That was 10 years ago. I have been driving a forklift at a distribution warehouse off Highway 36 ever since. 6 days a week most months. 10-hour shifts. Coming home smelling like cardboard and diesel and sweat. eating my lunch in the cab of the forklift with the engine running because the break room was too loud and too full of guys my age who looked just as tired as I did. And I could not stand to see my own exhaustion reflected back at me. And somewhere in there my son turned 21 and decided his whole young adult life had been ruined because his daddy could not afford his junior year spring break trip to Destin. A spring break trip. I want you to hold that in your mind. A beach trip. That is what broke my relationship with my son. Not the oil spill. Not the federal cleanup. Not the 10 years of financial ruin. A spring break trip to a beach in Florida that I could not pay for because I was trying to keep the electricity on. He has never forgiven me for that. Not once. Not even after I explained what happened. Not even after I showed him the EPA documents. Not even after I sat him down and walked him through every single decision I made and why I made it and how close we came to losing everything. In his mind, I gambled and I lost and he paid for it. Maybe he needed a villain, I used to think. Maybe it was easier to blame me than to blame a ruptured pipeline and a federal agency and a bank that pulled my credit line without warning. And I was standing right there. Easy target. Already down. Already guilty in his eyes before he ever heard my side of it. My daughter is different. Melissa is 26. Teaches 4th grade over at a school in Katy, about a 20-minute drive from my house. She was 16 when the oil spill happened. Old enough to remember the house we used to have. The one with the pool. The one where she had her own bathroom and a backyard big enough to set up a volleyball net for her birthday party. Young enough that she watched me rebuild something out of nothing instead of just mourning what we lost. She watched me get up at 4 in the morning to drive to the warehouse. She watched me come home at 7 at night and still sit down at the kitchen table and help her with her homework. She watched me eat leftover rice and beans 4 nights a week and never once say a word about it. She saw all of it, and she never once made me feel like less of a man for it. She came by 2 nights after that phone call with Richard, knocked on my door at 6 in the evening carrying a foil pan of chicken and rice. My favorite. The way my own mother used to make it. Heavy on the cumin. The rice just slightly overcooked because that is how Mama did it, and nobody else ever got it exactly right, but Melissa came close. She did not say a word about money. She did not say a word about bills. She did not say a word about Richard and his $12 million. She just set the pan down on the counter, kissed the top of my head, and said, "You still coughing like that old man? It is just allergies, baby." She did not believe me. She never did. She had been watching me cough for 3 weeks. She had been listening to it get deeper, wetter, heavier. Like there was something in my chest that was not supposed to be there and was not going away on its own. "You are seeing Dr. Ferris Thursday. Do not argue with me." I did not argue. Was not much point arguing with Melissa. She had inherited her stubbornness from somewhere, and I had a suspicion it was me. The same jaw. The same look in her eyes when she had already made up her mind, and the conversation was over whether you knew it or not. Dr. Ferris was not smiling when he came back into that exam room. I knew right away. I have been around long enough to read a doctor's face. The way they hold the folder. The way they sit down too slowly. The way they look at you like they are trying to figure out how to tell you something without breaking you in half. "Boris, I am not going to sugarcoat this." He set the folder down like it weighed 40 pounds. "The mass on your lung, it is operable. That is the good news." There it is, I thought. The other shoe. The one that has been hanging over my head since the first cough 3 weeks ago. The one I kept telling myself was allergies, Gulf humidity, dust from the warehouse, anything other than what Dr. Ferris was about to say. But it needs to come out soon. Weeks, not months. "Okay," I said, "because what else do you say? What do you say when a man in a white coat sits across from you and tells you there is something growing inside your chest that needs to come out, or it is going to kill you? You say okay. You say it quiet. You say it like a man who has already been through enough and is trying to figure out how much more his body can take. So we schedule it. That is when the woman from billing came in. Nice enough lady. Name of Becky. Looked about as uncomfortable as a person can look. She was holding a clipboard against her chest like a shield, and she kept glancing at the door like she wanted to be somewhere else. Anywhere else. She told me my insurance had a gap in coverage for the specific procedure Dr. Ferris wanted to use. A gap. Like it was a small thing. Like a gap is something you step over. A crack in the sidewalk. Out of pocket before they would even put me on the schedule. $3,500. I can look into a payment plan, Becky said. But the surgical team needs the deposit before they will book the operating room. Hospital policy. $3,500. You want to know something funny? I used to make more than that in a single week. Before the spill. Before the pipeline. Before the EPA and the credit collapse and the forklift and the 6-day weeks. I used to write checks for more than that without even thinking about it. I used to buy rounds at the steakhouse for my whole team on a Friday night and not blink. Now I sat in my truck in that parking lot. The 2009 Silverado. The AC barely holding. The check engine light on for 3 weeks because I could not afford the diagnostic. And I did the math about 6 different ways. On my phone. On the back of the Centerpoint envelope. On the receipt from the vending machine in the waiting room. Every single time it came out the same. I did not have it. My credit was still garbage from the land debt. 10 years of property taxes on land I could not touch. 10 years of late payments. 10 years of a credit score that made bank tellers look at me like I was asking them to lend me their personal car. No bank in Fort Bend County was going to touch me. $3,500, I thought. And I have got a son with $12 million sitting in an account somewhere. I told myself I would not call him. I told myself that for 2 full days. 2 full days of lying on my bed staring at the ceiling fan going around and around. 2 full days of picking up my phone and putting it back down. 2 full days of rehearsing what I would say and then deleting the whole script because every version sounded like begging and I did not want to beg my own son. Then I called him anyway. Because that is what a father does. You swallow your pride. You push it down into your chest right next to the rock and the mass and the fear. And you call your son. And you hope. God, you hope. You hope that the boy you raised is still in there somewhere. Under the suits. Under the commissions. Under the 12 million. You hope that somewhere inside that man is the kid who used to sit on your shoulders at the park and yell faster. Daddy, faster. He picked up on the 4th ring. And I could hear it right away. Glasses clinking, somebody laughing loud, a woman's voice saying something about a bottle of Macallan. Music in the background. The kind of low, warm music they play at steakhouses where the entrees start at $60. Dad. Hey, can this wait? We are at Perry's celebrating the Hendricks account. Richard, I need to talk to you about something serious. Yeah, okay. Give me a sec. Muffled sound like he had covered the phone with his hand. I could hear him say something to somebody. Excuse me 1 second. Just give me a minute. Then he came back. All right. Go. I told him all of it. The mass. The surgery. The gap in coverage. The $3,500 I needed by the end of the week or they would not schedule me. I told him everything. My voice was steady. I did not cry. I did not beg. I just told him the facts. The way you would tell a business partner about a deal that needed closing. There was a pause. A long one. Long enough that for 1 stupid second I thought maybe he is thinking about it. Maybe he is remembering that I am his father. Maybe somewhere under that suit and that scotch, there is still a boy who loved his dad. Maybe. Dad. His voice went flat. Cold. Like somebody had pulled the warmth out of the room from the other end of the line. I just spent 10 years digging myself out of the hole your bad investments put this family in. You know how hard I worked to get where I am? And now you want me to throw my commission back into what? More of your bad planning? Richard, this is not about the land. This is surgery. This is you brought this on yourself, Dad. You always do. Ask the hospital for a payment plan. That is what they are there for, and then quieter, meaner. The way a person talks when they are not trying to win an argument anymore. They are just trying to hurt you. I have got a reputation to protect now. Dad, I cannot keep carrying your dead weight. The line went dead, just like that. My son hung up on me while I was sitting in a hospital parking lot with a death sentence in my chest so we could get back to his scotch. I sat there, phone still in my hand, screen still showing the call duration, 1 minute and 47 seconds. That is how long it took my son to decide I was not worth $3,500. 1 minute and 47 seconds. I called Caroline next, told her everything. The diagnosis, the surgery, the cost, Richard's response. I asked if she could talk to him, maybe soften him up, maybe explain that this was not about old grudges. This was about my life. Do not you dare ruin this for him, she snapped. He worked hard to get away from all this. From your mess. Emma has got a stable job. Does she not? Go ask her. Emma. She meant Melissa. After all these years, and she still called our daughter by the wrong name when she was too busy being angry to think straight. Could not even be bothered to remember her own daughter's name in the middle of telling me to go beg from her instead. I hung up. Sat in my truck in that parking lot for a long time. Did not cry. I was past crying by then. Crying requires hope. Crying requires the belief that something might still change. I was past that. I was in the place beyond that where everything is just still and flat and quiet, and you sit there thinking about how a man could work his whole life to give his family everything and end up alone in a Silverado outside a hospital doing math that never comes out right. The sun went down while I sat there. The parking lot emptied. The security lights came on. And I was still sitting in that truck with the engine off and the windows down and the Houston heat sitting on me like a second skin. I met Melissa at a little diner off Highway 90 2 days later. The kind of place with vinyl booths and a waitress who calls everybody hun. Cash only. A laminated menu with pictures of the food. Catfish and hush puppies on special. Sweet tea in a mason jar with condensation running down the sides. I had not planned on telling her. I really had not. I was going to smile and eat my catfish and let her think everything was fine. That is what fathers do. You put on the brave face. You carry the weight. You do not let your children see you break. She knew before I said a word. She always knew. Dad. She set her fork down. What is wrong? Tell me right now. And I want you to understand something. I was ashamed. Ashamed to even be sitting across from my 26-year-old daughter. A school teacher who could not have more than a few $1,000s to her name. About to ask her for money that her own brother had turned down without blinking. Her own brother who had $12 million in an account and could not spare $3,500 for his father's cancer surgery. I did not even get the words out. Did not even finish the sentence. I got as far as the mass on my lung, and she reached into her bag and set an envelope on the table. Then she turned her phone around so I could see the screen. A notification from a payday loan company. Approved. $1,500. At an interest rate that would make a loan shark blush. Dad, stop talking. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was not shaking. Not even a little. She was steady. Rock steady. Like she had already made every decision before I walked through that diner door. There's $2,000 cash in there. I sold the Civic this morning. Melissa. My throat closed up, just shut completely, like somebody had put a fist around it. You sold your car? Cars can be replaced, Dad. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Hard. The way you grab something you are not going to let go of. The way you grab a railing when the ground is shaking underneath you. The way you hold on when everything is telling you to let go and you refuse. I am taking the bus to school for a while. It is fine. I probably need the exercise anyway. She smiled when she said it. A little smile. A brave one. The kind of smile a person gives when they are trying to keep you from seeing how much something cost them. I sat in that booth and I wept. In front of a waitress named Grace. In front of half the lunch crowd at a diner off Highway 90. A 58-year-old man with a mass in his chest and tears running down his face into his catfish. And my daughter. The one who did not have $12 million. The one nobody ever bragged about on the phone. The one who rode the bus to work and lived in a one-bedroom apartment and made $41,000 a year teaching fourth graders how to do long division. She held my hand across a Formica table and told me I was going to be okay. She is the only one who ever saw me. I thought. The only one who ever really saw me at all. Not the investor. Not the failure. Not the forklift driver. Not the deadweight. Just me. Just her dad. Just a man who needed help and was too proud to ask for it until his daughter asked for him. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I need you to feel the weight of it before I tell you what happened next. Because what happened next is going to change everything. Every single thing you think you know about this story. I had no idea sitting in that diner just how much that moment was about to matter. I had no idea what was still sitting out there on 60 acres of dead land past Simonton, waiting on me. Quiet. Patient. The way the truth always waits. It does not rush. It does not announce itself. It just sits there until you are ready for it. And I was not ready. Not yet. But I want to take you back to the morning of the surgery first. Because you need to understand what it cost me to get to that letter. You need to feel the weight of every single thing that happened before the tables turned. Because without the weight, the turn does not mean anything. They wheeled me into pre-op at 6 in the morning on a Thursday in early August. The hallway was cold, the lights were too bright. Everything smelled like disinfectant and rubber and something else underneath that I could not name, but that I knew was the smell of a place where people go to get cut open and put back together and sometimes do not come back at all. And the last thing I remember before the anesthesia took me under was Melissa's face. Right up close to mine, her hands squeezing my fingers, her eyes right there. 2 inches from my face. So close I could count the freckles on her nose, the same freckles she had when she was 6. The same freckles she had when she sat on my shoulders at the park. "You are going to be fine, old man," she said. "I already told the nurses you were stubborn as a mule. They said that is good. Stubborn people heal faster." Where did she learn to be this brave, I thought. 26 years old and steadier than I have ever been in my life. Steadier than I was at 40. Steadier than I was when I bought that land and bet everything on a highway that was 10 years away from being built. I woke up 11 hours later with a tube down my throat and a pain in my chest like somebody had parked a truck on it. I could not talk. Could not move. Could barely open my eyes. The ceiling was white. The monitors were beeping, slow and steady. The kind of beeping that tells you you are still alive, but the machine wants you to know it is watching. Dr. Ferris came by that evening, still in his scrubs. Mask pulled down around his neck, he looked tired. The kind of tired a man gets after he has been standing over an operating table for hours with somebody's life in his hands. He leaned down close so I could hear him over the monitor beeping. "We got it all, Boris. Clean margins. You did good. I did not cry. I did not have the energy to cry. I just laid there. And I thought about Melissa's car, sitting on some dealer's lot with a different family's name on the title now. A different person behind the wheel. A different life. My daughter's car, the car she needed to get to work. The car she needed to get to the grocery store. The car she needed to live her life. Gone. So I could be here, lying in a hospital bed with a tube in my throat and a scar across my ribs. She bought me this, I thought. Not the hospital. Not the insurance company. Not the government. Not my son with his $12 million. My daughter bought me this with a $1,500 payday loan and a car she needed to survive. I am going to make this right, I told myself. However long it takes. I do not care if I am 58 or 80 years old. I am going to make this right. Every dime, every sacrifice. Every morning she stood at that bus stop in the Texas heat because of me. I had no idea how soon that promise was going to come due. I spent the next 2 weeks recovering on Melissa's pull-out couch because my house was empty most days. Caroline had not so much as texted to ask how the surgery went. Not a call, not a message, not a single word in 2 weeks. 31 years of marriage and my wife could not pick up a phone to ask if I was alive. I was not about to lay up alone in a quiet house, listening to my own breathing machine. So Melissa said, "Come stay with me." Simple as that. No discussion, no debate. She just cleared a space on the pullout and put extra pillows on it and set a glass of water on the side table every night before she went to bed. Her apartment was small, 1 bedroom off Grand Parkway near her school. The kind of place where you can hear your upstairs neighbor's television through the ceiling, where the water pressure in the shower is a suggestion, where the window unit rattles all night like it is trying to shake itself loose from the wall. She taped her bus schedule to the refrigerator with a Katie magnet, right next to a photo of the two of us from some 4th of July picnic years back. I was wearing a grill apron and she was about 12 years old and we were both laughing. I could not even remember the last time I had laughed like that. I looked at that bus schedule every single morning. Every single one. Route 4640 Mir. Departure 640. She underlined it. Wrote it in her handwriting. The same handwriting she used to write lesson plans and grade papers, and write notes to parents about their children's progress. She is out there waiting on a city bus at 6:40 in the morning, I thought. Because she sold her car for me, and Richard is driving some leased Audi to a steakhouse to celebrate a bonus he will blow through in 6 months. That thought sat in my chest heavier than the surgical scar. She would come home from school every afternoon, still in her teacher clothes, smelling like dry erase markers and cafeteria pizza, her hair pulled back in a ponytail that was coming loose by 3 in the afternoon. She would drop her bag by the door and come straight to the couch and check my incision. How is the pain? Manageable. Liar. She would heat up something simple for dinner. Soup. Rice. A frozen thing she had in the back of the freezer. She was not much of a cook, my Melissa. But she tried. She tried every single night. And she would sit with me and watch whatever cop show was on. Some show about detectives solving cases in a city I had never been to. She did not even like cop shows. I knew that. But she sat there and watched them with me because that is what we did. That was our routine. That was our thing. And never once, not one single time, did she complain. Never once did she bring up the car. Never once did she ask when I was going to pay her back. That is the difference, I thought. Watching her fall asleep sitting up on a kitchen chair one night, still in her work clothes, head tilted back, mouth slightly open, exhausted from a day of teaching other people's children and then coming home to take care of her father. Richard gives because he wants credit. Melissa gives because she does not even think about it as giving. It is just love to her. Plain and simple. Like breathing. Like blinking. She does not even know she is doing it. It was a Tuesday, 16 days after the surgery, when the mail carrier knocked instead of just leaving it in the box. Melissa was at school. I answered the door in my robe, still moving slow, still tender across the ribs. The kind of slow where every step is a negotiation between your body and your will and your body is winning. Got something certified here, the carrier said. Need a signature. 2 letters, actually. One from an outfit I did not recognize at first, Cornerstone Golf Development, and one with a return address I knew instantly because I had been getting mail from them for 10 straight years. United States Environmental Protection Agency. Here we go, I thought. Another update. Another 6 months of nothing. Another form letter telling me the cleanup is still ongoing. Do not touch the property. Do not build. Do not sell. Do not breathe near it. Another reminder that I own 60 acres of land I am not legally allowed to look at. I almost did not open it right there. I almost just set it on the counter and went back to the couch. Because after 10 years you learn to not get your hopes up. You learn that hope is just disappointment that has not arrived yet. You learn to open those letters the way you open a bill. Already braced, already expecting the worst. But something made me sit down at Melissa's little kitchen table and tear it open right then. I do not know what. A feeling. A pull. Something in the air that morning that was different. Something I could not name. I read it twice. Then a third time. Slower. Because I did not trust my own eyes. Remediation status complete. Site released from federal oversight effective July 14. Complete. 10 years. 10 years of property taxes on land I could not touch. 10 years of my credit sitting in the gutter. 10 years of my own wife looking at me like I was a stain on the family. 10 years of my son treating me like a cautionary tale he told at parties. And it was sitting right there in black and white. Done. Released. Clean. I set that letter down on the table like it might go off if I moved too fast. Then I opened the second one. Cornerstone Golf Development. Turned out while my land had been sitting locked up under a federal order, the Grand Parkway expansion I had bet everything on 10 years ago had finally happened. Right past my property line. The highway I saw coming when nobody else did. The interchange I predicted. The growth I knew was coming. It came. Just 10 years too late for my credit. 10 years too late for my marriage. 10 years too late for my relationship with my son. But it came. 60 acres that used to be worthless swampland with an oil stain under it were now sitting less than a half-mile from a brand new interchange. Zoned commercial, surrounded by exactly the kind of growth I had predicted a decade too early. Gas stations, shopping centers, hotels, restaurants. Everything I saw in my head 10 years ago when I signed the papers and shook hands and told Caroline this was going to change our lives. The letter was an offer, a real one, signed, with numbers behind it. Not some lowball feeler, not a fishing expedition from a developer who wanted to see how desperate I was. A legitimate offer from a legitimate company with legitimate money. $15 million. Cash. 30-day close. I read that number probably 20 times. 15 million. I want to tell you, I whooped and hollered and ran around that little apartment like a crazy man. I want to tell you I called somebody. Celebrated. Punched the air. Did something. I did not. I sat very, very still. $15 million, I thought. And 3 weeks ago, I was crying in a diner because I could not come up with $3,500. I looked up, and my eyes landed right back on that bus schedule in the fridge. The Katy magnet. My daughter's handwriting in the corner. Route 4640 Mears. Underlined, memorized, because she had to memorize a whole new commute at 26 years old to save her father's life. She is out there right now, I thought, standing at a bus stop in this Texas heat, and I am sitting here holding $15 million. That is the moment something in me went quiet. And cold, and very, very clear. I did not call Caroline, I did not call Richard. I want you to remember that. Because it matters for what comes later. Every single word of it matters. I did not hide this money from anybody. I just did not see one single reason to tell people who had already told me in their own words that my problems were not their problems. Why would I call them, I thought, when 3 weeks ago they made it real clear whose problem I was. 3 weeks ago, my son hung up on me in a hospital parking lot. 3 weeks ago, my wife told me to go ask my daughter because she could not be bothered to remember my daughter's name. No, I was not calling them. I picked up my phone and called somebody else instead. Larry Foster. The voice on the other end said. Larry handled my business affairs back before the spill. One of the only professionals who stuck around after everything fell apart. My accountant walked. My banker walked. My business partner walked. Larry stayed. Mostly because I still paid him what little I could on time every single time. Even when it was only $50. even when I had to pull it out of the grocery money. I paid Larry because Larry treated me like a client and not like a problem. And that was worth more than I could ever explain to somebody who has never been at the bottom. Larry. It is Boris. Boris. Good Lord. How are you feeling? Melissa said the surgery went. Larry. I need you to look at some paperwork for me today if you can. Something in my voice must have told him this was not a check and call. Larry had known me long enough to read my tone the way a doctor reads an x-ray. He could hear the difference between Boris checking in and Boris with something serious. What is going on? I told him all of it. The EPA release. The cornerstone offer. The number. There was a long pause on the line. Long enough I thought the call dropped. Long enough that I pulled the phone away from my ear to check the screen and make sure we were still connected. 15 million, he finally said. Boris, that changes everything. I know it does. I looked at that bus schedule one more time. That is exactly why I need you to pull something else for me first, before we do anything with this offer. What do you need? You remember a document Caroline had you draw up about 5 years back. Larry went quiet again. I could hear him thinking. The way a lawyer thinks when you mention a document they remember well but wish they did not. The property and liability separation. The one Richard pushed for. That is the one. I remember it real well, Boris. I told Caroline at the time I did not love the idea, but she was insistent, and it was her legal right to protect herself given the debt situation. He paused. You want me to pull the original? I want you to pull it, and I want you to tell me exactly what it says. Word for word. Do not leave nothing out. Because if I remember that document right, I thought, Caroline did not just protect herself from my failures. She signed away every single claim to whatever came next. Good or bad. Larry called me back 2 hours later, and I could hear papers shuffling on his end. The sound of a man who had pulled a file and was reading it with new eyes. The sound of a lawyer who had just realized that the document he drafted 5 years ago had a tail on it that nobody saw coming. Boris. I am going to read you the operative language here. Caroline Hunt hereby waives, releases, and forever discharges any and all present or future marital claim, interest, or right legal or equitable in and to the real property located in Fort Bend County described herein, including any proceeds, appreciation, or value realized therefrom regardless of cause. Regardless of cause. Larry, I said, real slow. Does that partition and exchange agreement mean what I think it means? It means exactly what we drew up, Boris. 5 years ago, she wanted the family house and her retirement protected, so she partitioned the estate. She took the house as her sole separate property, and she forced you to take 100% ownership of that debt-ridden land as your sole separate property. He let that sit for a moment. It was legally binding the day it was notarized. Whatever happens to that land now, good, bad, or a $15 million buyout, she signed away every single legal claim to it. Richard was the one who pushed her to do it, was he not? He was the one who set the meeting up. He was. I almost laughed. Except nothing about it felt funny. Not even a little. Told his mother it was smart. Told her it would protect her credit if the land ever got seized for my debts. Set the whole thing up. Walked her through it. Sat in the room while she signed. Well, Larry exhaled slow into the phone. Son of a gun. Sure was smart. All right. Just not in the direction he thought he was being smart. I sat there at Melissa's kitchen table with the afternoon sun coming through those thin apartment blinds. Gold light on a laminate table. Dust floating in the air. The window unit rattling in the background. And for the first time in 10 years, I felt something in my chest that was not shame and was not grief and was not fear. It was clarity. The clearest thing I have ever felt in my life. Like somebody had taken a power washer to 10 years of fog and shown me exactly what was underneath. Larry. I want to move on the cornerstone offer. Quiet. I do not want a single soul outside this call knowing about it till it is done. Not even Caroline, not even Richard. Especially not Caroline and Richard. I looked over at Melissa's bus schedule one more time. You draw up whatever needs drawing up. I want the sale closed and I want a trust set up right alongside it. Irrevocable. In Melissa's name. Larry did not say anything for a second. All of it, Boris? The whole 15 million. Every dime after my debts get paid off. My voice did not shake, not even a little. And that surprised me more than anything else that day. More than the EPA letter. More than the cornerstone offer. More than the partition document. The fact that my voice was steady. That my hands were steady. That I was sitting in a one-bedroom apartment on a pull-out couch with a healing scar across my ribs. And I was the calmest I had been in 10 years. She sold her car for me, Larry. She took out a payday loan at some ungodly interest rate so I could have surgery. She has been riding a city bus at 6:40 in the morning for 2 weeks straight so I would have a place to heal. I stopped. Had to. My throat had gone tight. Meanwhile, my son told me to ask the hospital for a payment plan, and my wife told me not to ruin his big celebration. So no, I am not splitting this 3 ways for the sake of looking fair. Fair already happened. Fair happened in a diner off Highway 90 3 weeks ago, and only one of my children showed up for it. I hear you, Boris. I will have the paperwork ready by Friday. One more thing, Larry. Yeah, do not put my name on the deed for the house I am going to buy her either. Trust owns it outright. I do not want there to be one single piece of this that anybody can argue about later. I want it airtight. You understand me? Airtight, Larry said. I understand completely. I hung up the phone and sat there a long while in that quiet apartment, listening to the hum of the window unit, looking at that little bus schedule stuck to the fridge with a school magnet. They are going to find out eventually, I thought. And when they do, they are not going to come here asking how I am feeling. They are not going to come here to say congratulations. They are not going to come here to say I am sorry, or I was wrong, or I should have been there. They are going to come here asking about money. That is just who they are now. Maybe who they have always been. I was not wrong about that. I want you to hold on to that thought, because it is exactly what happened. But not the way I expected, and not for the reason I expected. See, I thought Richard and Caroline would show up because they had heard about the land, because word had gotten out, because somebody at the country club or the steakhouse had mentioned it and it had made its way back to them through the kind of gossip chain that runs through every small town in Texas. That is not why they showed up. They showed up because Richard was drowning in a mess of his own making, and he needed money so bad he was willing to walk right into the one place he had sworn he would never have to set foot in, his broke, embarrassing father's temporary bedroom on his sister's pull-out couch. He had no idea what he was about to find waiting for him there. Neither did Caroline, but I did. I had had 8 days to get ready for it. If you've been listening this long, I want you to know something. You are exactly the kind of person this story is for. The kind of person who sits with a story, who lets it breathe, who does not skip ahead. So do me a favor right now. Drop a comment below. Just one word. Tell me what you are feeling right now. Hit that like button so the story reaches the people who need to hear it. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now, because the next one is going to hit even harder. Now, let me tell you what walked through that door. My son walked into my daughter's apartment ready to threaten me with divorce lawyers and frozen bank accounts. He had no idea I was the one holding a document that had already frozen him out 5 years before he ever showed up. 8 days. That is how long I had between hanging up with Larry and hearing that first hard knock on Melissa's door. 8 days to get my paperwork in order, sign what needed signing, and sit with the strangest feeling I had had in a decade. Patience. That did not hurt. I want to tell you I spent those 8 days plotting some grand speech, rehearsing what I would say, planning my revenge word by word like a script. I did not. Mostly I just healed. Walked a little farther every morning, up and down the sidewalk in front of Melissa's apartment complex. Past the mailboxes. Past the parking spot where her Civic used to sit. Past the bus stop where she stood every morning at 6:40 with her teacher bag over her shoulder, sat on Melissa's little balcony in the evenings and watched the sun go down over the parking lot. Thinking about 60 acres of land that had finally, after 10 years, stopped punishing me. Thinking about a daughter who never once asked for anything. Thinking about a son who never once offered. Then that Wednesday evening came, and somebody pounded on the door like they were trying to knock it off the hinges. "Dad, Dad, open up. I know you are in there." Richard's voice, loud, frayed at the edges in a way I had never heard before. Not the smug, satisfied Richard from the steakhouse. Not the cold, flat Richard who told me to ask the hospital for a payment plan. Something else was under it now. Something I had never heard in my son's voice before. Fear, real fear. The kind of fear a man gets when he is about to lose something and he knows it, and he can feel it slipping, and he cannot stop it. Melissa got there before I did, still in her school clothes, pulled the door open with a look on her face I recognized. The same look she used to give kids in her classroom who were about to get sent to the principal's office. That look that says, "I'm about 5 seconds from making a phone call you do not want me to make. You want to explain why you were pounding on my door like the police," she said. Richard pushed past her without answering, Caroline right behind him. "And I want you to picture this. My son, 31 years old, in a wrinkled dress shirt with his tie already loosened, sweat on his collar even though the AC was running. His hair was not perfect for the first time I could remember. It was like he had been running his hands through it all day. Like he had been sitting somewhere pulling at it trying to figure out what to do. My wife behind him, arms crossed, face set hard, the mask she wore when she was angry, the one she put on like armor before she went into battle. Neither one of them looked at me and asked how I was healing. Not one word about the surgery. Not one word about the scar still tender under my shirt. Not one word. "Dad." Richard's voice cracked, just slightly, right in the middle of the word. Like his throat was tight. Like he was holding something back and it was fighting to get out. "We need to talk. Now." There it is, I thought. Not "how are you feeling?" Not "I'm sorry I hung up on you in a parking lot outside a hospital." Not "I should have been there." Straight to business. Same as always. "Sit down, Richard," I said. "You look like you are about to have a heart attack of your own." He did not sit. He paced. Back and forth across Melissa's small living room. 3 steps one way. 3 steps back. Like a man in a cage. "I was looking through the Fort Bend commercial registry today," Richard said, his voice shaking. "Cornerstone Golf Development just logged a deed memorandum. A 60-acre parcel out past Simonton. Your dirt, Dad." He stopped pacing. "They flagged the title history because of the waiver Mom signed 5 years ago." He turned and looked at me. $15 million cash. "You sold it, did you not?" Caroline's mouth actually fell open. 15. Boris, is that true? So that is how they found out, I thought. Not from me. Not from a phone call. Not from a conversation between family members. From a commercial registry. A public document. A filing they stumbled across while they were looking for something else. That is almost funny. In a sick sort of way. "It is true," I said, calm as I could manage. "Closed 9 days ago." 9 days? Richard's voice climbed higher, sharper, the fear underneath it cracking through the anger like ice breaking. "You have had this for 9 days and you did not call me. Your own son." I looked at him for a long moment before I answered. A long moment. Long enough that the silence became its own statement. Long enough that I could see him start to sweat more. Start to shift on his feet. Start to wonder what was coming. "Last time I called you Richard, you were at Perry's, celebrating a commission while I was sitting in a hospital parking lot trying to figure out how I was going to pay for surgery. You told me it was not your problem. I let that land. So no, I did not feel the need to call you the second something good happened either. That should have been the moment he softened. That should have been the moment the anger broke and the guilt came through and he looked at me and saw his father. Not a failure. Not a deadbeat. not a man to be embarrassed by. His father. The man who raised him. The man who carried him on his shoulders. The man who worked 6 days a week at a warehouse so there would still be a roof over the family's head. It was not. You hid this from us. Richard's finger came up, jabbing toward me like he thought that would make his words truer. Like pointing at me would make the facts different. Like anger could replace truth if he brought enough of it. You knew the cleanup was finishing. You knew that land was about to be worth something. You made us live like we were broke this whole time. Mom drove a 10-year-old Camry, Dad. A 10-year-old Camry. While you sat on a fortune, just so you could hand it all to your favorite kid the second it paid off. He actually believes that I thought. He is rewriting the whole thing in real time, right in front of me, editing out the parts that make him look bad, adding scenes that never happened, recasting himself as the victim and me as the villain. And he believes every single word coming out of his own mouth. Richard, my voice came out quieter than his, which somehow made the room go quieter too. The way a whisper can silence a room full of shouting. The way calm can make anger look like what it really is. I did not know that land was worth a dime until 16 days ago. I found out sitting on your sister's pull-out couch. Recovering from surgery she paid for. You want to talk about hiding things. I did not hide a fortune from this family. I hid the fact that I was scared for 10 straight years. Because every time I tried to talk about it, your mother told me to fix the bill and you told me I ruined your 20s. Caroline stepped in then. Arms still crossed. Chin up. The armor fully on now. Do not you dare stand there and act like the victim, Boris. I stood by you for 31 years while you dragged this family through the mud with your real estate disasters. That money belongs to this family. You are being vindictive. You are being cruel. You are being stingy, Richard finished for her. You are being stingy, Dad. And it is disgusting. Stingy. I almost laughed out loud at that one. Almost. Because the absurdity of it was almost too much for even me to hold in. A man who refused his father $3,500 for cancer surgery, calling his father stingy. Over $15 million. The word stingy sat in the room like a stain. Like something that could never be cleaned. Like something that would still be there long after everybody in that room was gone. We are not asking anymore, Richard said. And here is where his voice really changed. Dropped low. Mean. The voice of a man who thought he was about to win. The voice of somebody who has been holding a card and has finally decided to play it. Mom is filing for divorce tomorrow morning. Irreconcilable differences. Financial abandonment. The works. He paused. Let it land. Let me feel it. My lawyer is already drafting a motion to freeze every account connected to that sale until the courts sort out an equitable division. He stepped closer. You hid marital assets, Dad. That is not a gray area. That is fraud. He slammed his hand flat on Melissa's kitchen table. The same table where weeks earlier she had slid an envelope of cash across to me without a second thought. The same table where she had held my hand and told me I was going to be okay. The same table where I sat and read the EPA letter that changed everything. He slammed his hand on my daughter's table like he owned the place. You are going to be tied up in litigation so long you will not have a cent left by the time we are done. My lawyers will bury you. Melissa's face, I thought, glancing at her. That is my daughter's kitchen table, and he just slammed his fist on it like he owns the place. I looked at Richard for a long moment, then Caroline. Then I stood up, slow, careful, still tender across the ribs. The kind of slow that is not weakness. The kind of slow that is control. The kind of slow that tells everybody in the room that whatever is about to happen next has been decided a long time ago. I reached into my jacket pocket. You want to talk about lawyers, Richard? I said. Let us talk about lawyers. I pulled out 2 folded documents. I slid the first one across the table to Carolyn. You remember this, Carolyn? She looked down at it. and I watched the color start draining out of her face before she'd even finished the first paragraph. The way color leaves, not all at once, slowly, from the top down. Her forehead first, then her cheeks, then her lips, like somebody was turning down a dimmer switch behind her skin. 5 years ago, I said, you and Richard sat me down at my own kitchen table. You were scared, genuinely scared, that the bank was going to come after your assets because of my land debt. Richard's idea. By the way, his brilliant idea. He told you it was smart. Told you it would protect your credit if the debt ever caught up with the property. I tapped the paper. So you signed this. You had your lawyer draft a partition and exchange agreement. You took the house and your accounts as your sole separate property. And you legally forced me to take 100% of the land and all its liabilities as my sole separate property. Read it again, I said, gentle as I could manage, because there was not a drop of satisfaction in me watching her hands start to tremble. There was not a drop of joy. There was not a moment of gotcha. There was just the quiet, steady truth doing what truth does. Sitting there, patient, waiting to be read. It does not say debt, Caroline. It says regardless of cause. You did not just protect yourself from my failure. Under Texas law, you converted that land into my separate property. You signed away any future claim to its value, regardless of cause, just to keep your hands clean of my debt. Your own lawyer explained it to you, and Richard signed as a witness. Richard's face had gone pale too, but he still was not done. Never was that boy. Even with the ground opening up under his feet, he still could not stop himself from trying to talk his way out of a hole. That does not matter, he snapped. I will still take you to court. On what grounds, Richard? I slid the second document across the room. Take a look at this before you finish that sentence. He looked down. It was a bank statement. Melissa's bank statement. $12. I said, that is what is in your sister's checking account right now. $12, Richard. Because 3 weeks ago she sold her car and took out a payday loan at 22% interest so I could get on an operating table. While you were ordering $300 scotch to celebrate a commission, your sister was riding a city bus at 6:40 in the morning so she would have gas money to get to a job that pays her $41,000 a year teaching fourth graders how to do long division. I let that sit in the room for a second. Let it fill every corner. Let it press against the walls and the ceiling and the floor until there was not a single inch of that apartment that did not feel it. You want to talk about court, son? Go ahead. Bring your lawyers. Bring every lawyer in Fort Bend County. Bring every lawyer in the state of Texas. But before you do, you go ahead and explain to a judge how you plan to claim a share of assets your mother legally waived in writing 5 years ago. On your own advice, explain to that judge where you were the night your father needed $3,500 for cancer surgery, and where your sister was. Nobody said anything for a long moment, just the window unit humming, and somewhere upstairs a neighbor's television bleeding through the ceiling like it had every night for the last 3 weeks. Some sitcom, a laugh track, people laughing at jokes that were not funny while my family fell apart 3 floors below them. I did not hide this money from you, I said, and my voice finally came down, soft, tired, done, not angry, not bitter, just done. The way a man sounds when he has carried something for 10 years and is finally setting it down. I found out about the land's release sitting right here on that pull-out couch. Just over 2 weeks after surgery, it took 30 days to close the sale and the trust was finalized last week. I did not hide this to be petty, Richard. I kept it quiet because I needed time to ensure the money went to the only person who actually earned it. But I want you both to understand something. Even if I had known sooner, even if I had had months of warning, it would not change one single thing about this moment. I looked at Caroline first, then Richard. You two divorced yourselves from this family a long time ago. You just had not gotten around to the paperwork yet. The trust is already finalized, I said. Irrevocable. The full $15 million goes to Melissa. All of it. The very first thing Larry did this morning was wire transfer a payoff to that predatory lender. To burn your payday loan contract to ash. Next, I paid off the title on this apartment complex, so you do not owe a dime in rent while your new house is being finished. I funded the tutoring program she has been trying to start for kids who cannot afford it. She has been writing proposals for it on that kitchen table at 11 o'clock at night for 2 years. Nobody knew that except me because I was the only one who ever asked. She has got a car waiting on her, nicker than the Civic she sold, though she is going to fuss at me about that. I folded my hands on the table. You are both officially free of my mistakes now. Is that not what you wanted? For 10 years I heard about how I ruined this family with my failures. Well, congratulations. The failure is over, and it turns out the two of you signed yourselves right out of everything that came after it. Caroline's mouth opened. Nothing came out. For the first time in longer than I could remember, my wife did not have a single word. The woman who always had a word. Who always had a response. Who always had a comeback. Who could fill a room with her voice and never once leave space for anybody else. Nothing. Empty. Richard just stood there, jaw working, staring at that bank statement like it might rearrange itself into different numbers if he looked hard enough. Like the $12 might somehow become 12 million if he just kept staring. Like the truth could be changed by willpower alone. Get out of my daughter's home, I said. Quiet. Final. Both of you. They left in a silence I'd never once heard out of either of them in 31 years of marriage and 31 years of raising that boy. No slammed door, no last word, no parting shot, no final twist of the knife. Just two people walking out of an apartment, realizing in real time that the very cleverness Richard had always been so proud of. The legal maneuver he talked his own mother into. The document he set up. The meeting he arranged. The signature he witnessed was the exact thing that had locked them both out of a fortune neither one of them would ever see a dime of. The door closed behind them, and the apartment was quiet. Really quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, not peaceful, not calm, just empty. The air still vibrating with everything that had just been said. Melissa stood in the kitchen doorway after they had gone, arms wrapped around herself, watching me. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying. She was just standing there, holding herself, looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Dad. Her voice was barely a whisper. You did not have to give me all of it. Yeah, I said. I did. I walked over and put my arm around her, careful of my ribs. And we stood there a minute in that little apartment that would not be hers much longer. Not because she was losing it, but because she was finally getting more than she ever asked anybody for. Cars can be replaced, I remembered her telling me, months before. Sliding an envelope across a diner table, holding my hand, telling me I was going to be okay when nobody else in the world would. Cars can be replaced, Dad. You cannot. She had been right about that. Turned out I could not be replaced either. Not to her. Not to the one person who saw me when I was invisible to everybody else. Not to the one person who showed up when showing up cost her everything she had, and in the end, that was worth more than any number Cornerstone Golf Development ever put on a piece of paper. More than 15 million. More than 12 million. More than every dollar my son ever refused to give me, and every dollar my wife ever slid across a table like a punishment. We stood there in the quiet, my daughter and me. Finally safe, finally free. And somewhere across town that night my son sat down to figure out how he was going to explain to his firm's partners that the $12 million account he bragged about was not nearly enough to save him now. That the deals he had been chasing had gone sideways. That the money he thought he had was already spoken for. That the clients he had been courting had started asking questions he could not answer. And there was not a single soul left in his corner willing to bail him out. Not his mother who had signed away her claim on his advice. Not his sister who he had never once called. Not his father who he had hung up on in a hospital parking lot. Funny how that works out. Funny how the document you write to protect yourself from somebody else's failure becomes the exact document that locks you out of their success. Funny how the sister you never bragged about on the phone becomes the only person standing when the floor gives way. Funny how the father you called dead weight turns out to be the one holding all the weight all along. And funny how the word stingy sounds when it comes from the mouth of a man who would not give his own father $3,500 to save his life. Melissa never asked for any of it. Not the money, not the house, not the car, not the tutoring program, not a single thing. She asked for nothing. She never asked for anything her whole life. She just showed up, with chicken and rice, with an envelope, with a bus schedule taped to her refrigerator, with her hand squeezing my fingers before the anesthesia took me under. She just showed up. And that is the whole point of this story. That is the thing I want you to carry with you after the video ends and you go back to your life. It is not about who has the most money. It is not about who brags the loudest. It is not about who looks the best on paper or who has the biggest account or who wears the nicest suit to the steakhouse. It is about who shows up. Who shows up when you were sitting in a truck in a hospital parking lot with a death sentence in your chest and nobody to call. Who shows up when the bill comes and there is no money to pay it and the lights are about to go off again. Who shows up when you are 58 years old and ashamed and you cannot even get the words out because your throat has closed up and your pride is the only thing left, and even that is crumbling. That is who gets the 15 million. That is who gets the house. That is who gets the car and the tutoring program and every single dime after the debts are paid. Not the one who earned it on paper. The one who earned it in person. If this story hit you somewhere deep, somewhere you have maybe been ignoring, somewhere you have maybe been carrying your own weight without anybody noticing, then I need you to do 3 things right now before you close this video. First, hit that subscribe button. Not because I am asking you to support a channel, because the next story I tell is going to go even deeper than this one, and if this one moved you, the next one is going to stay with you for days. Second, hit the like button. Every single like tells the algorithm to put this story in front of somebody else who needs to hear it. Somebody who might be sitting in their own truck in their own parking lot right now, wondering if anybody is going to show up for them. Your like might be the reason they find this video. Third, drop a comment, not just where you were watching from. Tell me who showed up for you. Tell me about the person in your life who held your hand across the table when nobody else would. Tell me their name. Tell me what they did. Because those people deserve to be seen. The same way Melissa deserved to be seen. And I read every single comment. Every single one. And if you are watching this and you are the Melissa in somebody's life, if you are the one who sold the car, who took the bus, who sat up all night on a kitchen chair watching somebody you love breathe, if you are the one nobody ever brags about on the phone, I see you. I see every single thing you do. And I am telling you right now, your letter is coming. Your moment is coming. The one where everything you gave comes back to you in a way you never expected and never asked for. It is coming. Stay stubborn as a mule. The stubborn ones heal faster. I will see you on the next one.